I'm back as promised for part two of my story. But before I start telling that depressing stuff, I want you to meet somebody. Tiger, come here. Come here, buddy. So this is the infamous Tiger. This is the guy that taught me how to love and how to trust again. And he's my blogging buddy. Most of the time when I write, he's right behind me on the floor, usually cuddling with the cat. Although he probably would be embarrassed if he knew I disclosed that information. All right, so where did we leave off? I had talked about how I got the text after 16 years that suddenly ended my marriage. And then I found out that all my money was gone, even money I didn't have. And then I left off, right, intercepted an email that he had committed bigamy. And this is where the story gets crazy. I mean, it really does. I felt like I was living a soap opera. And if I get kind of convoluted in telling it, I apologize. Even as many times as I've told this story, there's still details that I'll forget and have to wrap back around towards. There's a lot going on in a short amount of time. So when I first saw that email that he had gotten married, after I processed it, it took a little bit, I was actually kind of glad to see it. I know that sounds weird, but up until then, everything he had done had been despicable, but not illegal. And this was the first time that I thought I actually might get some justice. At that point, that was very important to me. It didn't feel fair what he did, and I wanted him to face consequences for what he had done. So, contacted the police first in Georgia, where we were, and they told me that it wasn't a Georgia matter because the marriage didn't actually occur here. It occurred in another state. And so then I contacted the police in the other state and gave them the information, and that's what started that. So they found him and his other wife and pulled them in for questioning. And it was a strange, strange day. So he was at the police department. They actually let the other wife go pretty quickly. They determined she didn't know anything. So he was at the police department, and I was by my computer. And he kept making up stories to the officer. And every time he would make a claim, the officer would contact me. I would dig through whatever files and pictures and documents I had, and I would forward something to refute him. And the claims were absolutely crazy. He said we had been divorced for years, and I was remarried to a man named Mark Mercer, and Mark and I had a great life in Swanee, and I would even see my ex on Christmas. Apparently, we were still on good terms. It was just absolute nonsense. And so I just kept digging up whatever I could and sending it in. And according to what the officer told me, by the end of several hours of questioning, there was a stack of paperwork on the center of the table. And my ex still kept lying. He never stopped lying. And so the officer told him, you keep lying, you're just going to make it worse. And so one of the things that happened is the officer, and actually my attorney as well, suggested that my mom, who was with me at the time, that we go to where he was and take the car, because he had driven one of the marital vehicles there, and so it was still marital property, and it was currently sitting in the police impound lot because they had put him in jail. And so my mom and I hopped on a plane and went to go get his vehicle. But even before that, so while he's in jail, I had reached out via email to the other wife. And I had a sense of her of being sort of naive and sort of fragile, I guess might be a good word. And I was worried for her. I really was. And so I sent her an email, and all I said was, stay strong. And she emailed me back and just said, oh my God, Lisa, I am so sorry. I had no idea. I feel so terrible. And, I had no animosity towards her. She didn't know anything. She was taken in as well. And so we actually scheduled a time to call. And so while he was in jail, she and I talked. And at that point, she had left him. The police were also forwarding a lot of the evidence to her so that she knew the truth of it, that he was still married and was living as a married man, days before, and that all the money stuff was a lie and all of that. So we talked for several hours one day. And talk about a strange conversation. Can I just say, no woman should ever have to have a conversation about our husband. I mean, talk about crazy. The humor, you have to laugh. I mean, it really was so crazy. I got to the point I was referring to her as my wife-in-law, because we weren't sister wives. We certainly didn't agree to this. What else am I going to call her? So that conversation was interesting. We both were looking for answers, and I think we both just got more questions. Turned out they had met only 3 months prior. They were both on a business trip in Vegas, and she never saw him, in his home environment in Georgia, never met any of his friends or family. In fact, their wedding had over 100 guests and not one person from his side. So you would think there'd be some red flags there. But really, what was kind of scary is everything he had told her was a complete lie. He created an entirely different person to be with her. I mean, nothing he told her was true. And the one thing that still haunts me and really makes me concerned for her is what she found in her apartment. So while he was in jail, she was going through his belongings that were at her place. And one of the things that she found was a life insurance policy in her name that she didn't know about, that he was in the process of filling out. And she found slips of paper where he was practicing her signature. And her exact words to me were, Lisa, thank you so much. I don't think I ever would have made it out of Uganda alive. And I don't know where she is, but I hope she's okay. So after that conversation, not long after, get on a plane, get there, go to the impound lot. Actually, before that, as I told you, it gets a little crazy. So we're in the car, the police car, and we find out that he was bailed out of jail and find out that he had attempted suicide. It was so strange. For 16 years, my biggest fear was losing him. And I always figured if I'd lost him, it would be to death. I couldn't fathom him choosing to go. And there I was. I didn't know if he was alive, if he was going to live. I didn't have any information yet. EMS was on their way. And for the first time since I got the text, my body was still. I don't know what that means. So, all that's going on. We don't know what's happening with it. We go to the car. And it was really weird getting in his car. I mean, it was always his domain. And it almost felt like I was trespassing getting in his vehicle. And I opened up the center console. Again, I'm still looking for answers. I still want to know what's going on. Open up the center console. And there's this little slip of paper, just a little bit bigger than the sticky note. And in his writing, it had his wedding vows. Not ours, but the ones he had just said. It made it real. And I found something else in there that showed me proof of how far he was going to hide his other life. Because you gotta understand, I was feeling like something had to be wrong with me. Of why did I not see this? How could this have happened? So in there I see his car insurance card. And like many married couples, we had joint car insurance. And I knew what the cards looked like. We'd had the same company for years. And I looked at this card, and it had his name only. And I went into my purse, and I pulled my card, looked the same, and it had both names. And later that day, I got on the internet and looked at the file for the card from the insurance company, and it had both names. Now, my name wasn't whited out. He manipulated the document before it was printed. Because I guess it wouldn't do to have your first wife's name on your insurance card as you're wooing your second wife. Just goes to show the depths that he went to hide. So we go back to the police station and went into the evidence locker with the officer because he had to get, I guess my husband's, I want to call him my ex because it's so what he is now, but I had to get his contact case and solution in his glasses. Suicide attempt wasn't successful, which, it's strange. I'm glad it wasn't. But my feelings are so mixed in some ways. It's what I want most is for him to be okay and for him not to be hurting anybody else. But I don't know if that's true. And I don't want anybody to ever have to go through what I did. And the thought that he might still be out there hurting people. It's the only part that still keeps me up at night. So, anyways, we went in the evidence locker. And that's, again, when I realized how far he went. He had a wallet I'd never seen, filled with cards I'd never seen, a camera filled with pictures. It was a different camera than we had. He literally had duplicates of everything to have his other life. As I say, I thought I was married to my high school sweetheart. I guess I was married to a con man. And it still wasn't over. But I think that's it for today. I'll follow up again later.